Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the author series on the Success Insight podcast. Our guest today is Diane Klutz. We had the pleasure of interviewing Diane in 2019 when she had just re-released an illustrated version of her debut novel, Round Eyes, An American Nurse in Vietnam. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about Diane and her background and her book when she was on our podcast, so let her kind of share a little bit more about that. But it was a pleasure to find out that Diane had just authored her newest book. And I tell you, when I saw the word Martini and I saw the name of her publishing company, Two Olives, I thought, I'm in. One of my pleasures at 5 o'clock. So, Diane, it's a pleasure to have you back on what is now the author series on the Success Insight podcast.
Thank you, Howard. When you say that, yeah, a lot of people brings a smile to their lips, so to speak. So yes, it's great being back and seeing you again.
Yes, fantastic. Yeah, you were episode, I believe it was 48 back in 2019, which seems like such a long time ago, and so much has
Yes, happened.
transpired since then. I was in Chicago when I was interviewing you, and now I'm here in Las Vegas. And the house that I live in, I rent a couple rooms. It's for our listeners, it's more expensive in Vegas than you might realize. Uh,
Oh,
but I
oh,
have a landlord, and she likes her 5 o'clock adult beverage, and I have to watch my sugar. So I say, well, when you're doing the martini, you have to have good olives. I'm like all in. And so I love that you now have this new book, Martini Alley. And I'm just very excited to learn more about this book and what it's all about. But first, I would love if you could share a little bit about your background for our new listeners that did not have yet the pleasure to listen to our first episode together. So take it away.
oh, okay. Well, thank you. Um, Basically, I am a not retired, but I nursed. I was a nurse for about 48 some years. I guess once a nurse, always a nurse. I'm a Vietnam veteran, hence my first book, um, Round Eyes, An American Nurse in Vietnam. And I have my PhD in nursing. It's one of those things that it takes you forever to get it. And then after I finally made that great achievement, I decided I didn't want to teach anymore and I didn't want to nurse. So I just quit and decided at that point, that was in 2012, I think, that I wanted to, I was just going to, because I was writing the Round Eyes book at the time. So I wanted to finish it. I've written another book, which is a whole other story. Went through several scams on the second book.
Mm.
So I am back to, I can give a whole lesson in what to
Oh,
avoid.
we're going to talk a little bit about that. Trust me on that.
But yeah, and then really in 2012 was when some of these episodes from Martini Alley first occurred. And so it's
Mhm.
taken me 10 years to get it all wound up, but
Okay.
I'm glad I did.
Okay. Now, I recall in our first episode, and I think you allude to it a little bit for our listeners, when you go out to Diane's website, and we're going to provide a link to it later. Uh, well, I'll give it to you right now. What the heck? DianeKlutz.com. She has a page there about a shopping cart where you have the books and you can read about it. Let's just say Diane is being a little bit conservative about her exploits. Well, maybe not, because I haven't heard anything from Martini Alley yet, but let's just say she was in her younger years as the Army nurse. You were a little wild there, I think.
It kept going as the first chapter in Martini Alley. Well, once I met my husband, it went downhill after that.
Right. And the rest, as they say, is a long, long story and
Oh,
history. And now,
yes.
for our listeners, by the way, so you met when you were both back from your tours in Vietnam, and you met on a base.
Yes, we met at Fort Gordon, Georgia,
Okay.
and both of us were short timers, meaning he was out before me, and gee, it just so happened that I was housed right across the hall from him at the bachelor's officers' quarters. And I was the only, well, there was one other female officer housed there, and the rest of it was full of guys. So what can I
Okay.
say?
Well, yeah, it's like I'm like for those for you, that's like great odds here. And now
Yeah.
I heard you. I recalled you had a little adventure in a certain swimming pool.
Well, yes, well, I was raised with three brothers, the only
Okay.
girl,
Okay.
and out in rural Pennsylvania. But I could never, I couldn't pass up a dare. You
Right.
don't dare me to do anything.
Okay.
And so a bunch of us had been out partying at the local Augusta, Georgia. It's called the Partridge Inn,
Okay.
and came back early. And Stephen, not my husband at the time, but Stephen said, in fact, as we had never dated, I hadn't been there that long. He said, "Oh, I know what. Let's go skinny dip in the officers club pool. I know the major who runs it." Well, nobody would do it. And of course, then he goes to the dare, double dog dare. Well, that was it. I said, "I'm going." So, yes, we did. It was locked up, of course, and huge chain link fence up over it. But we crawled up over it and was in the pool. And, well, needless to say, we heard sirens. The next thing, the MPs are flashing
Right.
their little lights at us. So,
Uh-uh.
yes, we got
Okay.
caught.
All right. Well, we'll leave it at that and to everybody's
Yes.
own imagination. So I'm curious, when you retired back in 2012, had you begun and you were to round eyes then, or had that been in the works and you were finishing it up? Uh, how did that book come about for you then?
Yes, I was finishing it up, and I think that, well, fact is, I that last year, yes, so in 12, um, I had completed it. But it came about because my uncle, who had written several books, he's a retired naval captain, and he kept saying, "Diane, you need to write some of these stories. They're kind of interesting or kind of this." And I had two brothers with me in Vietnam. Actually,
Mhm.
we crossed paths there. So there's not three of us at the same time, but within a month of each other.
Okay.
And so then I was able to come back early. So I completed my 6 months here. But yeah, so it was I just, but by that time, and I could get into whole other things, but it was a cleansing. It was a cleansing sort of for me,
Okay.
to be
Okay.
honest.
Oh, I can appreciate that. I mean, so many went through some horrific experiences, and it just you were all changed from the point you got there to coming back. And so I know, remember the second book, you had shared some illustrations with me. We had that in the show notes, and so again, I appreciate that. How did what was the premise for you in writing Martini Alley? Is why that book?
Well, my husband and I like gin martinis. Okay.
Okay.
And so we always said, Martini Alley's a neat name. And so in our 50s, we decided to take up boating and went
Yeah.
through the whole thing.
Uh-huh.
But the actual premise, or why I wrote the book and compiled all this stuff, is we had this big trawler named Martini Alley.
Uh-huh.
And one particular, the one story, let me say, and I had it published in the Island Moon, which is down in near Port Aransas in Texas. But after we came back from it, the whole thing was just so wild. I sat down and just kind of compiled the story. And I sent it to my family, just saying, "Oh, you won't believe this," and sent this rough thing out. Well, it just kept more people, and then they would share it with other people, and I was getting all this stuff. So when the second episode happened, not long after that, I wrote that up, and then the Island Moon said, "Hey, we want to run this." So that came on, and and then we moved up here to Sun City. I live in Sun City, Georgetown now, and in Texas, and kind of published them in um, there's a local magazine, and published them. And friends kept saying, well, you got to write more. So I started sitting down, and in the meantime, we'd had these other things. I actually had journaled, like
Mhm.
the god awful long trailer thing, like Lucy and Desi, going off the side of a
Oh,
cliff.
I want to hear that. We're going to talk about that because that coming out here to Vegas, that means a lot, and I know exactly that
Oh,
episode you're talking about.
I bet it
About
does.
yes,
But anyway, so yeah, it just started with some of my journals and some of my stuff, and then trying to remember, and friends saying, oh my gosh, do you remember this one? And I'm like, oh, yeah, hello. And so, yeah, and of course, like anything, Mark Twain never let, the truth get in the way of a good story.
of course,
And so you have to embellish some of it, but hey, you have to tell stories.
sure.
And
Eh,
and to be honest, I wanted to make people laugh. And
okay,
I think I just everything is so blah. So I wanted to bring laughter.
I appreciate that. And by the way, I love the cover of the book, and for our listeners, we'll put the cover in the show notes. And uh, do you have any illustrations or photos in the book, or is it straight text?
There are illustrations by a gentleman, Jonathan Brown from
Okay,
Utah area was my illustrator.
okay,
And so he came up, he was working closely. He felt sorry for me, so gave me a good price because some of the places he works in.
right,
But yeah, he did some of the illustrations. We didn't do any pictures, even though
okay,
I have them of some of the stuff. But my editor didn't think he could work it all in. I don't know. So,
okay. Well, I'll tell you what, if you want to share a couple of photos, we'll make sure we put those in the show notes. And
oh, okay.
and as I always share with my guests, I'm a very opportunistic podcaster. So,
Well, there you are.
there's photos, it adds to the experience of coming on the website. So
That's true.
when you it sounds like first, your husband and you are quite the adventurers. And I think as you have kind of you've got a long career, the marriage, the kids, and now grandkids, lots of experiences. You get a little bit of everything. Okay. And had you always had this wild streak, the two of you together?
Yes, I'd say. I mean, yeah, we're big dreamers.
Okay.
And some of the dreams didn't work. I mean, we actually took on wildcatting for oil in Nebraska for
Oh
a brief
wow.
stint. Of course, that went down the tubes in '86.
Okay.
But I mean, there's probably we had a convenience store, first self-serve gas station in Arlington, Texas.
Really?
So yeah, I mean, we've never been afraid to try something. What's the
Okay.
worst that can happen? You
Yeah.
fail,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. You were in the arena getting dusty and dirty, and
that's
you
right.
know, some people just stay outside the arena and can only imagine. So when you're having this experience with the boat, and I have been on Lake Michigan in sailboats,
Oh,
and I remember a certain spinnaker getting wrapped underneath the bow of a sailboat I was racing on, and that
oh,
was not the greatest experience in the world. And then I remember the tiller breaking, a nice new,
yes.
brand new tiller breaking it while I'm
Well, you're on
skippering the boat. And it's like,
it.
okay, I'm going to stay closer to land right now. But
Love it.
what was the experience of being on a boat? I mean, the trawler, that's not a real like small lake pleasure craft. I mean, this is a big deal having a trawler.
It's yeah, for what, 45 feet long, and I don't know, 12, 14 feet wide. It it was a beautiful, beautiful vessel once we finished it up. But you can never buy anything like that without putting thousands and thousands, tens of thousands into it to fix it, but it really was good. I think there was some, well, to be honest, my husband, bless his heart, as we say in the South, um,
Yes.
yeah, he suffers from things from the war. Let me
Uh-huh.
just put it that way.
Sure.
And so certain events would happen either on our sailboat or on the trawler or even in the motorhome that, man, I don't know. I guess it was Vietnam revisited at certain at certain things. So
Right.
it became difficult at that point. We loved it, and believe it or not, we still think about, or he does more than me, of, oh, let's just go ahead and get a boat, and we'll just dock condo it,
Now,
and it all sounds romantic.
mhm.
But then again, you're like, oh, maybe not so much. But
My roommate, her boyfriend lives on Coronado Beach. In that
sure. Oh my gosh, that's gorgeous
there's
down
a
there.
marina there, and he has a
Uh,
small 40-some-foot boat, and he lives on it.
Yep,
And I'm in here in Vegas, and I'm thinking, "Where am I gonna live next?" So he's like, "Howard, you gotta buy a boat.
I
We'll
know.
find one for you. You'll be in a marina." And how cool would that be? And it's like, yeah, it'd be really cool. But you're I've never taken I've taken care of a sailboat before, but that
Yeah,
to be responsible for something that big and that complicated, and then heavens, the stories or the responsibility that increases once you start heading out of the safe harbor. A lot going
that's
on.
that's very true. Like I said, when we had our sailboat, she was a very pretty gal up in North Texas. But man, like I said, I learned a lot. You're down in the galley and you look out the little porthole and you see the feet of a heron staring back at you. That, oh, we're hitting sand.
Oh
And
boy.
but yeah, and I never knew that a sailboat could do 360 turns, but boy, it sure can, real
Oh,
quickly.
oh, if you're not careful, and it just as long
Oh,
and it just
oh,
as long as you remember the duck too.
yeah,
That's
to duck, yes,
You
that's
gotta
right.
remember
Here
the
it
duck.
comes.
So, what are some of the others? And again, we're going to get into the motorhome because I do want to talk about that. But what are some of the other stories that readers can expect when they pick up a copy of Martini Alley?
I think, well, and this was kind of an aside to put in, but excuse me. Oh, excuse me. Um, when I kind of put together the book, I was thinking of on the water, in the water, land cruising, and all these sort of things. But we also did some of our, I guess, earlier midlife adventures, early life, whatever, was building a house, and it's and so people think, well, that's not an adventure or house remodeling, but in when Klutz and I do it, it becomes a real adventure. And so, yeah, it's so building we learn building out in the mountains in Colorado, you better be ready to have everybody leave by September the 1st because all of your workers are gone to lower ground. And so we ended up building this house and it's still there and it still looks good. Um, by ourselves, three of us, and got some church friends. So I think that, and then of course taking on the task of remodeling and everybody that's helping you saying, "Oh, get this guy, he's cheap." Yeah, but in order to get him, you have to go to Mexico and bring him back and things like that. So those were, and of course there were many more that I didn't even put in a book. But I think that also learning to, I think to me, the thing about the book was in my mid fifth. No, I was 60. Lord, I was in my 60s when I decided, oh, I'm going to scuba dive.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And so I think I was crazy, but okay, I'll do it. Stephen talked me into it. And we really did have some fun times. Didn't do it for that long, but learning to scuba dive. And I think my whole point on the book is not to be afraid. People and even when we get old, we can do things. I mean, look at President Bush jumping out of an airplane. What the heck? And I still want to do that one of these days. But yeah, it's like you're never too old to try stuff. Well, maybe some stuff. I wouldn't bungee jump, let's say that. But um,
Okay.
at my age, in your
Okay.
70s, you do have to be a little careful here.
Just a little. I will. I'm a little bit younger. I will never jump out of a perfectly good airplane. I have scuba
You,
dived. I enjoy it.
yes.
What was very interesting as I was kind of exploring the book is having been on the water myself in the sailboat, and I just want to get back to the safe harbor. I want a Jimmy Buffett
Uh-huh.
song playing, and I want
Yep.
my martini, my
Yes.
adult with a
Yes.
couple blue cheese stuffed olives, and I'm a happy
Yes.
guy.
Ah,
Uh, the as I came out to Vegas and I started to explore the outdoors, car camping, and I got involved with the Outdoor Writers Association of America. A lot of these
wow.
outdoor adventurers have car campers, they have transit vans that they have built. And these are folks that have write about the outdoors, hunting, fishing, uh, mountain biking, hiking, etc. And it's funny as I was preparing for this episode, I was yesterday, I had been exploring motorhomes. Like, what if I didn't live in an apartment or a house? I just live in a motorhome going from place to place. And then I was thinking about our episode in the Lucy Desi YouTube video. I'm gonna have to find a link for that and put that in the show notes. But
Oh my gosh, that is the funniest movie.
oh
Well,
my,
it's sad at the end, but it is fun.
yeah. What was the experience of traveling around in a big motorhome?
Well, like you, we had no place to live, and I had in my mind, wouldn't be fun to be out and parked, and I have my computer and I have my stuff, and I can just write my stories, and it's all going to be wonderful. And I think in a perfect world it would have been, but when you put in a couple of dogs and a cat, and then a husband needs to find a VA or
Hmm.
different things. And I found out also it was harder. Maybe it's just because now everything is, even back in 2014, things were getting more expensive. And the price of diesel, we had a diesel pusher. Oh my gosh, diesel was over $5 a gallon.
Hmm.
And of course, now that's everyday stuff, but back
Right.
then it was a lot.
Yeah.
And finding a place to camp it. So it turned out that it was getting more expensive to be in the motorhome. It was difficult, I have to say. We never
Yeah.
learned how to back the damn thing up. So, I mean, you're constantly searching for a pull through.
Right.
But we did learn. The neat thing, though, is I have to say that um, boondocking, being along the with truck drivers, and they're a wonderful bunch
Yeah.
of people, and we found more places to park for quote free,
Right.
and in that. But yeah, it was hard, and I would never drive it. Yeah, well,
Yeah.
especially when you consider the fact that not only do you have this 46, whatever, 45 thing vehicle, then you're towing a car
Right.
with bicycles, and you've got all of this other paraphernalia. Yeah, you got to make room for
Okay.
yourself on the road.
So just so I get this clear, this RV, you were towing the RV with a
No,
big, oh, you were
no,
driving
it
it.
was actual, we were driving it. It
You
was a
were
diesel, called a diesel pusher. So
diesel
the
pusher.
engine is
Okay.
in the back and it's pushing
Ah,
you.
oh,
And
wow.
then behind you, we had on a tow bar, a car, our
Okay.
Jeep. Yeah, so we have our had our Jeep behind us.
Okay.
And so, which most people do, because you get somewhere, that thing, I mean, where do you go? How do you need to someplace to get around, to go to the grocery store, nothing else.
It's not easy, which is funny then about about having, well, first the Desi and Lucy video is they are towing, and
Yes.
that car in are kind of, I don't, heaven knows where they supposedly were, maybe going up in I-70 in Colorado, who knows?
Yes.
And but that car is just, I mean, it was doing everything it could do to get up the hill, and then all of a sudden the momentum is when you're going down the hill. It's like,
I don't know how they pulled out with that
uh,
car, honestly,
oh
but
my God,
I
it's
guess they had to have jacked up that thing somehow. But
somehow, and it's like that's the miracle of entertainment and
well, that's
television and
true.
movies.
That's true.
I I would like a I'm trying to decide whether I would want a vehicle, that a camper that I would drive, or one that I would tow, or even have like a 1-ton truck that has those
Hmm.
6-foot
Fifth
beds that have the,
wheel.
well, no,
Yeah.
not a fifth wheel, but
Oh,
they have
okay.
geez, a camper insert. I'm gonna have
Oh,
to edit that
okay.
one out. So
Ah,
it's like a 1-ton truck,
huh.
like a Ford 350. So here's a plug
Yeah.
for Ford. You need to sponsor my episode, Ford. There you
Yeah.
go.
There you go. Come on.
But there's like a camper insert. So that would be kind of cool, because I suppose you could get to a campground and just drop the camper if you wanted to, and drive away and
Yeah.
go into town. Because that's the hard part, as you were saying, when you have one of those big diesel pushers, is you
No.
can't go just anywhere. You've got to be very cognizant of where you're going and how am I going to get out.
Exactly. And going in to get gasoline or fuel.
Yeah.
Whoa. That was a whole, we were in Pagosa Springs when everything, and which I love Pagosa Springs, Colorado,
Mhm.
but finding diesel that time, but then being able on these skinny little roads going up to it to actually get your huge camper or vehicle, whatever, in to fit with the diesel under the awnings.
Right.
It was like you're standing there going, oh, do we lower the air in the tires,
Right.
so to speak? But yeah, it's but yeah, the mountain passes, and we took that mountain pass. I knew we were over the hill. I mean, I it was a Thelma and Louise moment,
Oh boy.
as Jonathan so aptly illustrated it for our chapter on that.
Oh,
He did a good job, because that's what it felt like, you
I
know.
love it. I love it. So what was it like to craft this book? So you're gathering these stories. Your friends are saying, "Oh, Diane, you remember this? You remember that?" What was it like crafting new book, which is really one of fiction, and well,
Yes.
not fiction. It's
Yeah.
autobiographical,
Yeah, it's kind
but
of a memoir,
yeah,
whatever
memoir. It's a
thing.
little bit different. What was it like to sit down and produce this book? What was some of the lessons learned there?
Lessons learned was a lot. I would say the well, number one, I had a friend of mine. Actually, he did round eyes. He helped me with round eyes and did the cover,
Mhm.
which he did the cover for this. James Rutherford of Hot Digital Dog. I'll have to tell him.
All right.
But he he has a very strange sense of humor, older than even I am. And so he's very artistic as far as all of this verbiage. And so he would kind of take a hair, and I'd send him a story, and he'd say, oh, I can just picture this. And then he would start sending some funny things back, and then we'd start. And yeah, it was a lot of going back and forth of how to do it, what not to do. I've uh, but mostly what I've learned was self-publishing
Mhm.
was difficult. I think the 10 years it took me, the last 2 years was doing to write it. The last 2 years was doing nothing but searching out what is the best way to get this published. You can't, to me, finding an agent, I just don't have the patience for
Right.
that.
Right.
And not that I don't mind rejection, but I don't want to take 3 years to be rejected. There's
Right.
certain thing in that. Um, and going the other avenues. So yeah, I researched long and hard on the best way to do to get it out. And of course, good old Amazon, 85% of the reading public gets through there. But then I went through Ingram Sparks and had to
Right.
learn how to do that
Hmm.
for the rest of the publishing. And I think that that's the hardest. That's to me is the hardest thing. Getting a right editor, Lord, I so many people edit and they're worse editing than I am. So
It's interesting, much like the coaching profession, Diane, you've got to be careful of the due diligence you need to perform. If you need help, whether it's growing your business, whether it's getting coaching supervision, someone that can help improve your effectiveness as a coach, growing the business, helping to market and promote the business.
oh
There's folks out there that they're very happily take your money, and
yes.
they'll tell you how many that tens of thousands X's they can do of your business and your output, and
Oh,
perhaps,
exactly.
but
Exactly.
and it's you just like buyer beware. You just got to be careful of those shiny objects.
Oh, I know that's oh God, they're back. Oh my
So
God.
I hear a four-legged friend there.
I guess they're back.
All right,
I'm sorry.
that's okay.
There's
What's the four-legged little one's name?
I have two of them.
Sure.
One buddy,
Well,
he's one that we kind of rehomed him a couple years ago. So he's a 3-year-old cocker, and then we have a 14-year-old cocker named Tess.
uh,
So,
okay,
but
very nice.
anyway,
Yeah, I have my roommate has a cat. She's now sleeping on the printer. She's being good, but I'm a dog person. And it's funny. There's a couple of folks that I had done a podcast with. Dan Klauser, episode was last year. He and his wife retired. They sold the home and now they're living in campers almost full time. Now they have family in certain parts of the US that'll go and visit certain times of the season, but that's their full life, is just living in the camper.
and it sounds, I keep thinking I want to see the United States,
Yeah.
but I think that again, I was reading an article. Oh, it was in AARP.
Okay.
And I'm thinking it
I
was
don't know what that is, by the way. I refuse to know what that is. Don't tell
I
me.
won't tell you.
Don't
I
tell me
won't
what that
share it.
acronym
I
stands
will
for.
not. But it was about things to do when you retire. And
Mhm.
one of them was if you think that selling it all and getting a motorhome and traveling around is perfect, think 3 times or 4. And I think it's the truth. It just things like getting your medicine, your mail,
Mhm.
your this, your that. It does. And of course, when we did it in 14, I wasn't ready to sell everything.
Mhm.
So then we had to pay for storage for our furniture and
Right. Right.
so it just and for another car, because why would I sell my car? Hello. Yeah, it sounds and it's still so I still want to travel,
Well,
but I'll do it a different way.
what would be good is, and I'm thinking about this too. If you have a house or a garage or like an awning where you park your vehicle
Yeah.
underneath, if you have a decent vehicle that can tow like one of the larger teardrop trailers or the
Yes. Oh.
larger A-frame trailers,
Mm-hmm.
those to me seem to be good alternatives to going all in on a huge transit van or
Yes.
the the diesel pusher that you had experienced, because then you can always go back home. But then if you had the car in this teardrop or A-frame trailer, you could go anywhere. And by the way, even though I
Yes.
didn't want you to mention AARP or what that stands for, because I don't want to know,
I don't want to know.
I did get a certain discount when I renewed my national park pass this year. So there's
Well, okay.
that was definitely worth the price of admission.
There you go.
It was the only time that I said, you know something, it's good to be so many years old.
That acronym thing.
But
Acronym.
acronym. So how does your husband feel about this writing career of yours?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, he likes it. I mean, he was really good when I came up with the idea, and my editor was like, "No, no," but I don't think he'll like it. But of making it everything Klutz. So I always refer to him as Klutz
Right.
in the book. And he actually was very, he goes, "Oh, I think that's cool." And I said, "Well, think of Phyllis Diller and Fang or that." So I have Diane and Klutz.
Yeah.
But he is supportive. I think he has trouble with, we all do, understanding the process, why
Uh,
it takes so long.
yeah.
Well, you're done with it. Why isn't it out? Get on with it. Why aren't we making money? Yeah, well,
Well, I
and
think you better have that conversation that says, "Honey,
yeah,
this might not be happening, but we're going to have fun doing it
but we're
anyways."
gonna have fun doing it, and it's a talking point. What can I
Yes.
say?
And something, it's also a legacy. I mean, see, there I go. I gotta have to
There
edit
you
that one
go.
out. So it's part of the legacy. I mean, you have you're a number of books now. You've been speaking about the books. It's an opportunity to meet people and hear
Oh, yeah.
stories, share stories that you never would have had unless
Oh,
you embarked on this adventure. And
that's
that's
true.
that's cool. That's cool to go through.
And I love it. I tell you, people have shared some of the strangest stories. I'm like, gosh, real life really is a lot stranger and funnier than fiction. I
Oh yeah,
swear. I just
definitely,
I get more amazed every day at some of the things people say. And I'm like, holy cow. Can
it
I use
definitely
that in my
is.
next one?
There you go. So I am curious though. I mean, I remember when we first met and I was interviewing you, and I don't think I asked this because I was trying to be the professional podcaster that I
Oh,
was aspiring to
okay.
be. What it was like to have the last name of Klutz, and now you've kind of embraced it. That, and sometimes you are a bit of a klutz. What's that been like?
I think actually it's well, I wouldn't change it. That's his name. But I think that it really has been good. It is
Hmm.
because it never lacks for somebody to say something like, "Oh, well, has anybody ever said anything to you about your name?" And this is way back when, right after I was married and I was in college. And a college professor said, does anybody ever say anything like about your name?" And you can straight face and say, "No, why? What is it?"
What do you
But
mean?
yeah, what do you mean? Of course, I never even knew what a klutz was. So, like I
Ah,
said, I growing up in rural southwestern Pennsylvania, I'd never heard the term.
okay.
And then the Klutz bird came out, and after I met, and then it was my cousins from Chicago, by the way, who
Uh-huh.
said, "You're what, marrying a Klutz? That's actually his name. Do you know what that means?" And I was like, "No," you know. So yeah, so it's been interesting. Of course, our daughter was just very, very happy to change her name. So
Yeah.
she didn't like growing up to be a little klutz or being a klutz, but
Yeah, there's unfortunately in our childhood, it's other kids can be just a little cruel, but
just a little cruel.
eventually I think we grow to embrace who we are, and that's good. That's good.
Yeah,
So if our listeners would like to learn more about you, I do want to cover your website again and also your social sites. But before I head you out, before
yes,
I let you go,
yes.
I always felt funny about that NPR, and I'm comparing myself to NPR right now, Diane, is,
Okay.
when they're doing their interviews and Terry Gross says, "Before I let you go." I always thought that was kind of odd, but here I am just saying,
Before
"Diane,
I
before
let
I
you
let you
go.
go."
Yeah, before I let you run away.
Or
Yeah.
yeah, and I know I'll probably be chatting with you the next time another book
Oh
comes
yeah.
out, but
You bet. You bet.
until then, uh, what, as you look back on your work, and especially the writing and this gathering the stories through just living your life, and your husband living your best lives, what's been your aha moment now when you think to yourself, I'm Diane Klutz, author. I've written accomplished professional in healthcare. I've written a number of books, and now I've got this wonderful book, Martini Alley. What's been your aha moment as you kind of look back in this trajectory that you've taken?
I wish I could just come up with a one. Um, I think it's, I think my main aha moment is realizing that I should not take myself or life too seriously, that I am going to mess up. And I am going to, I'm human. I'm going to mess up. And I think that, it's saying it's okay. It's just accepting me being me,
Hmm.
which has taken a long time. I've wanted to be, I always thought I wanted to do this or I wanted to do that. And I think, and maybe that just comes with age. I don't know, but I would never give up any part. I mean, I wouldn't change. I would never, maybe there's a few things that happen in our lives,
Hmm.
but I think that, in the long run, it's still been good.
That's good. That's good. With age comes wisdom and insight, and you look back and you're in the arena. And as Teddy Roosevelt wrote in his famous speech, you're in the arena. Who care? Get a little bloody, dirty, dusty, but it's the people from the outside looking in. If you're not in the arena, you can't appreciate the journey. And you've been on a great journey and some great experiences. Everything from the officers club pool to trawlers to navigating mountain passes and building
And
homes in Colorado.
barroom brawls. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Oh, we didn't cover that one. We'll have
No,
to
we
have.
did. That's another day. But
Okay,
I
that's
think, Howard, one thought I
yeah.
guess I do have to say is
Mhm.
that, um it's not well, I won't I guess I just lost the thought when you were saying those things. And
Yeah,
I just think that, we we move on.
yeah.
We get on there and not to regret it. And
Good. Very good. Any final insight that you'd like to share with our audience before we do head out today? Or
no, other than the fact that if anyone, I will say one word of advice. If anyone is writing, wants to write, wants to whatever, and maybe this is my aha moment, is that, a professor once told me they're going to kill your baby. I never understood what that meant
uh,
until I was writing seriously my dissertation and thought I had turned out a work, Nobel Prize winner, and man, they slaughtered that thing.
yeah,
And I think that developing a thick skin as a writer probably is the best thing I learned, and tell writers that it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt and they're going to read it, and but you take it back and you keep right on writing it again. So
very good. Very good. Now, before we head out, do you share your website with us so we can send our listeners there to learn more about you and your work and adventures?
yes, dianeklutz.com.
Very good. And how about social sites?
Well, you know me, I can never keep up with what I'm doing, but I do have a Facebook,
Okay.
and it's under, what is my Facebook under? I think
It's
it's under
Diane Klutz,
Diane.
author.
Yeah, Diane Klutz, author. Hello. I did find out there's another Diane Klutz kind of author, but she has a goat with her picture, so I don't
All
get it.
right. That's goat yoga or something like that. Who
Yeah, we
knows?
won't go there.
All right. Well, listen, Diane, it's been a pleasure to catch up with you again, and congratulations on the new book, Martini Alley. And I am definitely going to have well, let's see, this is Monday. I was thinking this was
Yeah,
Friday. I can't have a
yeah,
martini
it's
during the week.
Monday. I know.
Yeah.
Duh.
Well, as Jimmy Buffett would say, it's fine. Well, I forget who said that. It was somebody else's song, but he sang it at it's 5 o'clock
Five
somewhere.
o'clock somewhere. Yeah, it's
Yes.
always 5 o'clock somewhere,
I
you
love
know.
that. I love that. Well, listen, thank you so much for being
Thank
on
you,
the
Howard. I
author
appreciate it.
series. Oh, my pleasure. And listen, stay in the line. We're going to do a
I
real quick
will.
close, and you and I can
Right.
have a final chat. Okay. All right.
Thanks.
Okay, folks, we have just been chatting with the wonderful Diane Klutz, author of Martini Alley and Other Swashbuckling Adventures of a Certified Klutz. Now, we had the pleasure again of interviewing Diane back in 2019 when we had a chance to chat about and learn some of her adventures as a Army nurse. And her book was in the second publication, Round Eyes, which has some great illustrations in it. We're going to provide a backlink to it. We'll provide a link back to her other work, You Can't Sleep Here. And of course, we're going to have a link back to Martini Alley and Other Swashbuckling Adventures of a Certified Klutz. And I love that Diane shared a little bit about what's been the life having this wonderful last name, and something that's, if anything, it's a great conversation starter. And just hearing some of the experiences that she and her husband have had in the adventures, and just sometimes we get real comfortable sitting in our homes watching the TV and the news and the talk shows. And what I love about listening to Diane sharing her stories is she and her husband are always out there looking for their next great adventure, and I'm sure they will find it. I'm sure that also a new book will come out of that as well. As for us, please come visit us on the Success Insight podcast website, and you can find the episode with Diane there in our author series category. You can also find the Success Insight podcast on Facebook and on LinkedIn, and you can also search for us on wherever you get your podcast from. So we are on all the podcast directories. So again, you got your choice there. Until then, folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, go out there, have a phenomenal day, and we will see you on a future episode of the author series on the Success Insight podcast. Take care now.